Hey, Jaden Fox here, and I wanted to answer the question I've received about why are people transgender and what causes it. I wanted to answer this because I have a unique perspective that very few people, I think, have. It's having spent 40 years exploring being transgender and getting to a space where I just found one day I didn't need to explore it anymore. And I found a way to change it. Um, and I was like, whoa, what was that? So I want to talk about why, from my point of view, are people transgender and what causes it. And from my perspective being, it felt like I was born that way. It felt like I was born different than other people. It felt like I just had an interest in feminine things and I had less interest in masculine things, or not as much interest in masculine things. Like I like playing with dolls. I like hanging out with mom in the garden and doing gardening and doing nature things. Hanging out with dad in the garage just wasn't so interesting to me back then. And so I just you just explore those energies, and it's like, why is it that way? You don't know. You just know that there's this masculine force in your body, or masculine dominance and a feminine dominance. And one is stronger than the other. And for me, when I was younger, the feminine was stronger than the masculine. And so there was a part of me that was more interested in the feminine things than the masculine things. Wasn't interested in sports or the things that most guys did or talked about. I was more interested in hanging out with the girls and what the girls were doing and what the girls were talking about. I related more with them, or that's what it felt like. Yet you got this tangle going on, and then puberty kicks in and all hell breaks loose. It just gets really freaking complicated because all of a sudden the hormones jack everything up, and then you have the uh, the sexual drives that start to kick in that are more biologically centered. And it's like, whoa, what do I do with that? So when that kicked in, there was more of a masculine drive in my body. The testosterone started to be producing, started growing facial hair, and like just the man thing started to come on. And so the masculine got stronger than the feminine. And yet the feminine part was still there. And what do you do with that? Well, you just do the best you can with it. So I've explored with focusing on being with the feminine side and living life from a more feminine perspective. And I've lived life being in the more masculine side and seeing what that's like. I've had women partners. I've had men partners, and they both have different things that was interesting about them. And I've even tried merging the two together and being masculine and feminine together. But there's always been this inner conflict going on between the masculine and the feminine. Fortunately for me, the I'm biologically male. The drive to be masculine was always stronger than drive to be feminine. So it was easier for me because the feminine drive didn't overpower the masculine drive. If it overpowered the masculine drive, and if your testosterone is low enough, it can very easily do that. It's like the feminine can be very dominating. And if you have a feminine dominance in your body, then you just have this really strong feeling that I'm just in the wrong body. Like there's just something wrong. Like you've been given the wrong body. Whereas when I was young, I didn't have, and because the feminine was less powerful, I didn't feel like I was in the wrong body. I was just really, really confused. And I wished I also had a vagina. It's like, why can't I have both? Like, what's wrong with having both? But it's like the the big thing is complicated. It's this big mind fuck. And you learn as a transgender person that this is a cruel world, and people can be really, really evil and cruel and horrible and nasty in the worst imaginable ways. I think most non-transgender people can't imagine how horrible people can be, how just evil and hideous people can be, inhuman people can be to other people. The amount of abuse that I took as a child, in school especially, kids are horrible with each other. It's like just the picking on and the just incessant harassment that you get. And so it's like, why are people transgender? Well, my point of view about it, after having gone through this and then getting to a space where I started on a path of awareness, nothing to do with being transgender. It's just like I went through this process of starting to become aware of like taking the red pill, blue pill, like to go outside of the matrix, and I started to see what was going on and started to learn more about what's really true versus the illusion of this reality. And what prompted that for me was being taken over by many, many different spirits. I started to learn about entities. And I got to learn about demonics and creatures and aliens and all kinds of interesting non-physical energies that can interact in your space. And what I've learned about transgender, again, to answer why are people transgender, I think the answer to that I've discovered is you can have multiple spirits in the same body. Some people would call it a soul, but religion uses that word, and I don't want to tangle with religion stuff. It just kind of gets confusing. And so when I'm talking about what religion would call soul, but I'm going to call it spirit or essence. It's like the average person has a physical body, a container that has a gender, and then has a spirit, an essence, that typically has the same gender, and they're embodied together. So the physical body and the spirit become one, and most people have one of each of those, and everybody's happy. And they're designed to come in an alignment. As the spirit comes, my interesting point of view is during the process of inception, conception, before pre-birth, the biological body could be both male or female. It aligns to the spirit of the body, the essence that's in the body. If it's a masculine gender spirit, the body will turn to a masculine gender or feminine gender. And there can even have both. You can actually have both a vagina and a penis together, and you can have both in the body, but that's more rare to be born that way. What can happen, however, is, let's say that you're born, I'll give you my explanation. I was born in a male body with a male spirit. Early on, there's a feminine spirit that came in as a protector guide, as a protector being, as a helper being. And it would hang around me a lot, and it became like a playmate, a friend. And I would interact with it, and I would talk with it, and Mom's like, "Who are you talking to?" "Oh, nobody." I would have my invisible playmates. And at a certain age, and it was probably around 6 or 7, like I noticed I started to have a lot of challenges, and this other being who was actually for me a very strong feminine energy, like butch feminine, like powerful feminine, and I felt like this weak masculine energy. That was the story or the illusion I was under. It was this weak masculine energy, and I would have these challenges, and this feminine energy would be like, "You should stick up for yourself." And I'd be like, "Well, I don't know how to do that." Like, what do you mean stick up for myself? And this feminine energy was like, look, I can come in and join you. I can be with you, and I can help you. I can teach you things. I can teach you about the world, and I can help you to stick up for yourself more. And I'm like, well, that sounds good. Have another friend hanging around? Woo, all right. And so it's a progressive thing. It's not a black and white, it turns on at this time. This conversation occurred over many years, and ultimately I got to a space where I invited this other feminine spirit into my body. So it wasn't just hanging out with me, it was in me, with me, in this physical body. There are some people on the planet who have the capacity to hold multiple spirits in the same body. Not everybody can do that. Some people can do that. If you're transgender, you may know what I'm talking about. But not necessarily everybody. I haven't polled everybody, but that's my impression of a large cross-section of transgender that I've personally interacted with. I've found that there are multiple spirits that are there in the body. But you don't understand that. You just know that you've got this strong presence or this strong energy in your body. And so I had this feminine energy, and it seemed cool. It seemed fine until I got to middle school, high school, and started to be abused mercilessly by the wonderful other children that I was in school with. That caused me to really wish I didn't have whatever was going on with me and that I was normal in the worst way. But by then, it seemed like I couldn't change it anymore. Like no matter what I did, I couldn't undo having this other spirit in my body with me, which seemed to make everything more complicated, seemed to make everything more challenging. And I promptly forgot that any of this took place. So to me, it was just, I don't know, I was cursed and I had this weird stuff going on. And so I spent 40 years of my life trying to make sense of and find the best way to deal with the feminine side of me, quote unquote, and the masculine side of me. It wasn't until I became aware and went through and started to learn about spirits, because I was taken over by them, and learned how to clear them from my body, that I started to recognize that, wait a minute, this feminine energy that's in my body that I've called me for 40 years is actually a spirit. And I should have the ability to clear it, but it didn't seem like it worked fully. And I recognized then that there are layers of agreements and binds that can keep that being trapped in the body. And as I started to research those and I started to explore, I realized I could release those agreements that I made with that other being long time ago when I had no clue what was going on. When I was innocent, young, had just no clue, and I agreed to this. It's like, I can change that now. From a space of awareness, I can release those agreements. And I released those agreements, and I sent that being on its way. I crossed that being over. You can have... Do I get into that here? No, I won't get into that here. And all of a sudden, I was in my body alone, and it was quiet. And there was no longer that struggle of, am I masculine? Am I feminine? Like, there was no longer the struggle of, how should I be expressing myself, or what should I be doing? There was more of an ease of, this is just me. And in that space, my interests changed, my hobbies changed, my career focal point changed, my life changed, and things got simpler. I started to appreciate my masculine in a way that I'd never appreciated it before. I had tried working out when I was young, and it was just like, ooh. The feminine part of me was like, ooh. Once that feminine part was gone, once it was cleared, it was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. And so weightlifting and muscle building and working out became like, wow, this is really cool. Like the more masculine side of me, there was an appreciation there that I never had before. Where before I looked at the hair on my body and I was almost repulsed by it. I mean, I've got like hair all over the place. And like I was like, oh, I wish I could get rid of it. And I did. I explored shaving it off. And the feminine part of me loved having no hair on the body. And it's like all of a sudden I was like, wow, I like my hair. Like, I like the masculine part of me. And I started to perceive what it's like to not be transgender for the first time in my life and to just be masculine. I was like, wow, this is really cool. It's easier. So what I want to say to those who are experiencing the transgender thing is that while it feels like you don't have a choice, on a deep level, through becoming more aware, you can create that choice or get that choice back that you lost a long time ago. And it is actually fairly straightforward to clear all of those other spirits out of your body that aren't essence. And pretty much, if you're not sure and you don't know, you have no clue, like it's been there for so long, you have no clue, you just keep clearing everything that you can grab to clear and clearing all the agreements you have, and what's left is you. Because you can't clear you. It just doesn't work. And again, I can go deeper into this in another video. I just wanted to lay out the kind of this deeper perspective of why are people transgender, what causes it, and to me, what causes it, and I'm not saying for every transgender, but for many that I have interacted with, what causes it is having multiple spirits in the body. And whether the person is ready to look at that and make any sense of that, like it's a freaky thing to do to start to look at that whole paradigm. So I don't wish it on anybody who's not wanting to go there. And if you are trying to help a transgendered person out and they're not aware and they're not interested in becoming aware and they're not on an awareness path and they're not conscious and they're not interested in becoming conscious, I don't suggest that you talk to them about having another spirit in your body, because you're not going to get a good response from them. And let them explore it. There's value in exploring it until there's not value in exploring it. When they're done with it, if they're ever to a place where they're done with it, I'm not saying they ever would, but there are some people who may get to a place where they're done with exploring transgender. When they're totally done with it and they're like, fuck, I wish this was different, and how do I change this? Then you can send them this video, you can send them this information, because then they may be more interested in it. For people who are on a path of awareness, this is inherently more interesting for them. That they can actually, there is a way to clear the manipulation that's occurred that has caused that other spirit to get bound into the body. Once it's bound, you don't have a lot of choice other than to clear what are the original agreements that bind that. And that takes a more expanded awareness and a willingness to look at a bigger picture of agreements and to see this reality not just as a place where people live and work and have kids and do whatever they do and then die, but that this place is something way more, and that there's actually a lot of illusion and manipulation and distortions that are going on here, and there's way more going on in this world. People who are willing to explore that can actually make this change. I can't say everybody. some people can actually untangle the transgender part. And I will talk about that in yet another video for those who want to clear the transgender part. And so, again, Tangly threw a lot of stuff at you. Feel free to watch this again, watch the other videos that I've recorded about this topic, and feel into this. And if and when you feel ready and you want to untangle this, go to that video of how do I clear those other spirits. We'll see you on that other video or in those other explorations, and enjoy.